Welcome to AI in Your Practice, a trial attorney's guide to tools, ethics, and efficiency. I'm Mark Hogue, chair of the Beverly Hills Bar Association's AI in the Law section, along with my co-chair, Amanda Harris. And I'm the founder of HogueLaw.ai, an AI-first law practice where I serve as fractional GC to tech companies while spending nights and weekends vibe coding apps, because of course I do. I'm delighted to introduce today our speaker, Kenny Ramirez. So Kenny is the founder and principal attorney of the law office of Kenny S. Ramirez, based in the Inland Empire, where he represents plaintiffs in personal injury, catastrophic injury, wrongful death, and related matters throughout California. He's tried cases as lead counsel in both state and federal courts, and has successfully mediated and arbitrated matters across a wide range of case types. And with that, let's get started. Kenny, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Mark, and it's a pleasure to be here with everybody. I have a lot of material, so I'll sort of get going here. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If I can answer them, the questions as we're going, I'll try to do that. If not, I'll save it till the end. Again, I have a practice out of the Inland Empire. I have a small growing firm, and it's one of the situations where tech, our legal tech stack and AI has been something that has helped us grow, and also to be able to compete and operate as a much larger firm than otherwise, right? So our bandwidth is a lot greater, and at the same time, the quality of our legal services and the work that we provide for our clients, which is number one more than anything, hasn't been sacrificed, and instead is being augmented by the use and the assistance of tech and AI. So that's sort of the stuff that I wanted to share with everybody today. Again, based out of the Inland Empire, my office is in San Bernardino. Practiced for many years in Los Angeles, and I'm an IE kid and was able to move back and open up my practice. So when thinking about tech and AI, I like to give this analogy of building a house. My dad was a contractor. I grew up on construction sites as a kid. So a lot of my analogies sometimes revert back to construction. And so when I think about AI, I think about building a house. And generally speaking, there are three phases, very generally speaking, three phases when building a house. One, the first stage is getting a permit, right? Making sure you're in compliance with city ordinances and codes and that you have the city's permission to build a house. And then after that, the second phase is laying the foundation, right? Making sure that you have a strong foundation on which to build, and then you start the framing, building the structure around that's going to house the house. Pardon the redundancy there. And then the third phase is the finish. It's the actual, like the fancy finishing that everybody sees, the paint, the molding, the tile, the crown molding, the base molding, all the beautiful stuff, the lights, the fixtures that everybody sees and that everybody's enthralled with, is that third phase. And so when I think about tech and AI, think about it in a very similar way as building a house. The first phase is permits, making sure that you're in compliance with the appropriate laws, particularly as attorneys. There's attorney-client privilege, there's HIPAA, there's a lot of things that we're concerned with that we have to be in compliance with. There's security and ethical guardrails, and that's all part of that first phase when we're making sure that we have the permits to be able to use that AI and that tech and implement it into our practice. That second phase is about the foundation and framing. It's making sure that you have the right case management software, the client relationship management software, CRMs, and all part of that second phase, which forms the foundation and the framing around which your firm is going to be housed. And then lastly is that finish, all the fancy AI tools. That's the stuff that everybody's talking about, right? It's the generative AI assistants, it's document review chronology, it's demand letters, and tools that you can implement across all and any phases of litigation, whether it's discovery, deposition, trial, intake even. And so That's sort of what I think about when I think about whether I'm going to use, when I'm considering whether I'm going to use a particular tool or AI product. And so I want to start with permits first and foremost, because I think that's the thing that as attorneys we're most concerned with. We have concerns about the ethics of using AI. And our concerns are around attorney-client privilege, making sure that we don't violate that first and foremost. Confidentiality around sensitive client data, cybersecurity and data breaches, accuracy and reliability of the outputs of the information that we input and get back from AI. Is it making things up? And of course, whether client data is used to train models, because if client data, as we're going to talk about, if client data is used to train models, that is a violation of something as basic as attorney-client privilege. So we have a lot of concerns, and because of those concerns, I think a lot of attorneys are not using AI categorically, and then using it very sparingly, and maybe not using it in the best way that they can or in other applications in other ways throughout their practice. So to start off, I do want to discuss just what an LLM is, and that's really what we've all, our first exposure to AI has been to ChatGPT for the most part, right? There's been other applications prior, but that's really where it all blew out. Started recently in the past couple of years has been through ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and these are all large language models. And so the question is, what is an LLM? In basic terms, it's an AI system that's been trained to recognize patterns in text data, to understand it, and then generate human language. It's that sort of ability that allows this AI, these LLMs, to review documents, to create summaries, and to assist us with any task that we might set this AI on. And so, again, it's trained on these large text data. And the big thing from these LLMs is that it pulls from all of the known universe, right? The entire internet. That's why we hear these stories about, you know, cases being made up because it's pulling from some random subreddit thread. Because really, these LLMs are pulling from anywhere in the known universe. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the strengths of the different public or general purpose AI models like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude a little bit later. But this particular slide that I have up right now is not necessarily intended as a comparison between ChatGPT and CoCounsel, though it functions as that as well. But the idea is to sort of give you an example of the difference between what is a public model or an all-purpose, sort of general purpose model in ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, versus something that is legal specific like CoCounsel or Lexis AI. And the big difference is that we see from a security standpoint, which is sort of this first phase that we're on with permits, is that the public or general purpose models are not specifically designed for legal work. And that's important because it hasn't been trained necessarily to help with legal work, though it definitely can and it is helpful in certain applications and when it's set to do certain things, but it wasn't designed to do that. Whereas something like CoCounsel or Lexis AI, for example, they have legal applications and were designed specifically to be optimized by and for attorneys. The other point here is the source and training, right? With ChatGPT, if we just talk about sort of the environment and the source, it's pulling from all of the known universe, all and anything that's available on the internet. So it could be information that's accurate, it could be information that's very inaccurate, and I think more of that type of information is available on the internet, right? Whereas something like CoCounsel, they operate on what is a closed universe, meaning that it is only going to pull from the information contained within that environment. So with CoCounsel, for example, they are owned by Westlaw. It only operates within the Westlaw universe, within the cases that we all know and that are either checked or shepherdized, whatever, through Westlaw, right? So it's a much more stable environment and one that we can trust more simply because it's closed and it's not pulling from anything else. So closed environment versus an open environment, closed universe versus an open universe, that really matters for us as attorneys, particularly when it comes down to something like research. The other point is with security and attorney-client privilege and HIPAA, with general purpose models, public models, the model will train on your data. So, under no circumstance should you be uploading medical records or any client documents, data into these public models, because a public model is training on that data. And by doing that, attorney-client privilege has been violated. If it's medical records, we're in violation of HIPAA. There's a lot of issues with doing that, as opposed to something like CoCounsel or Lexis AI, where they have specific guardrails to protect against that. And I'll get into that a little bit later. I will note, and it's important to note, I have it at your bottom, I guess, left here, that certain enterprise models or versions of these general purpose models, so enterprise or business version of ChatGPT, enterprise version of Gemini, of Claude, do allow for closed environments, and that's something that has been developing over this last year in particular. So it does allow for closed environments, so you can toggle that off so that it doesn't go beyond your workspace or the information that you've inputted, uploaded. It's not pulling from some random subreddit thread, and it's going to keep the model from training on that uploaded data. And most of these enterprise models are also up to date with safety measures. And I'll mention some of these safety measures in a bit. And so that's good because that wasn't something that these general purpose models were necessarily, they weren't necessarily concerned with some of the things that they've now noticed that attorneys and other professionals, other individuals are concerned with. So there are better security measures. The big caveat here, though, is still with these general purpose models like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, is that they don't necessarily equate to HIPAA compliance or legal grade privacy, medical protections even. And so that's really important because they don't make themselves or market themselves out to be something that attorneys can use and that it protects against things like violation of attorney-client privilege or violations of HIPAA. Whereas something like these legal specific models like or platforms like CoCounsel and Lexis AI, they specifically address those concerns because, hey, if they're providing this service to attorneys, they know that's paramount for attorneys. So, enterprise versions of ChatGPT have gotten better with respect to what information they're pulling from. They can become closed universe and that they're up to date with a lot of safety measures, but they're not marketed that way. That doesn't mean that it's not helpful, that these general purpose models, public models are not helpful. It's more about alignment and the correct approach, right? And what I have here on the screen here is really a solid approach is to reserve your public AI, these all-purpose models, general purpose models for non-confidential tasks, something like creating correspondence or something that you want to send that doesn't necessarily that isn't concerned with communications that should be privileged, and then rely on closed environment legal specific platforms when you're handling client data, privileged materials, and substantive legal work. So go ahead and use ChatGPT if you want to refine some correspondence and email or whatever other task you may need. But when it comes to client data, privileged materials, that's when you want to make sure that you're using the closed environments and legal specific platforms as well. So again, there's a use for both of them. You just have to make sure that you're employing them in the correct manner. And I also have here on the materials, and you all have access to the materials. You can download that, but just a little bit of a Venn diagram here of the different types of LLMs that are available. The public models, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, that can be upgraded to enterprise, of course. And then there's also the very specific legal grade, reliable, closed case universe models that are CoCounsel and Lexis AI. And then also, there's these other platforms companies really that have been created specifically for attorneys that I call sort of your do-it-all options, like Harvey, like Eve, Everlaw, Anytime AI. Um, talk a little bit about some of these in a moment, but they are also very similar to CoCounsel and Lexis AI, but they try to do a lot more in terms of their services. So, you know, I do think that they are great. And if you don't have CoCounsel, you don't have Lexis AI, you don't have any other type of AI or LLM that you're using, any of these, Harvey, Eve, Everlaw, Anytime AI, would be worth the look. Take a demo. And that's something that I practice with my sister. My sister practices with me, and we're building our business. Is we always take meetings because I want to see what is available. And many times there are demos, or a trial, maybe like a week, where you just kind of get to go in and see what is being offered. Is that something that makes sense for your practice? Is that something that makes sense for your firm? Maybe not at the moment. And we've had those situations where we go, okay, you know what? Maybe we don't need that yet, but I know this is available and I might need it in a year, right? And start implementing it firm wide. And so take those demos and check them out is really the biggest thing. All right, so when it comes down to security standards, a few things, and this is a good list of like 4 or 5 different things that you can use when you're evaluating whether you're going to use a certain AI tool or platform. It's your way of sort of this little bullet list and just have it ready and make sure that it checks off each one of these. And if it does, it is something that you could use with your practice because it meets the security concerns and gets you past that. So first and foremost, is the platform SOC 2 Type 2 compliant? We don't necessarily need to get into the technical explanation of what SOC 2 Type 2 is, but essentially what it is just this audit that makes sure that there are security controls in place that exist not only at one point in time, but that are sustained over in a longer period of time. Meaning that, it's not just when the audit was done at on X day that things were secured. No, it's something that is secured and can be trusted to be secured when it is used. And so you want SOC 2 Type 2 compliance. You can find whether or not a tool or a platform uses SOC 2 Type 2 just by going onto their website because they have to have that up there. And if it doesn't, they don't. You can also ask for the reports and certificates. These companies will share that with you, particularly if they have it, right? Because they want to make sure, they want you to know that they are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. So it's about the security that is extended over a period of time, not just randomly. And then the other question is data encrypted at rest and in transit? Meaning, is it encrypted? Is it protected, not just when it's in your system, but also when it's being transmitted between systems? And so even if, God forbid, there's unauthorized access, the data is still encrypted and it's not compromised. So you want it to be encrypted at rest and in transit. The other thing to note here, or to make sure that your tool or platform that you're evaluating, make sure that it has, is whether it's a closed environment. So we discussed that a little bit, making sure that it is an environment that is not going to pull from something that it shouldn't pull, and it's not shared with or exposed to any external systems or trained by public models. That's what this next security concern is as well, is the information used to train the model. Again, if the information that you upload is being used to train that model, there is a violation of attorney-client privilege happening immediately, right? And so you want to make sure that your information is not retained, reused, or incorporated into any of their future models. So again, make sure that it's a closed environment and it's not being used, your information is not being used to train their model and help them get better. That's why something like, going back to that, like CoCounsel and Lexis AI and their versions that they offer are great because they've already been trained for specific legal tasks. It's not a public model that's being used, that's learning necessarily how to do that. It's already been trained to do that. And that helps. And lastly, is the AI company familiar with legal ethics and compliance? And without any if you don't have answers to these questions, if they can't provide you with the certificates and reports, then you might not have the permits to build on top of this model. So it might not be something, a tool or a model or a platform that you want to implement into your firm, at least not at that time. I also have up here just some rules and recommendations by the state bar. Um, we don't necessarily need to go through them here. It's more just as a reminder. And of course, the state bar, this is something that they've looked into, already looking into, because it is something that is prevalent throughout our industry. So here, due to confidentiality, a lawyer can't input any confidential information into any AI tools. And so that's everything that we've discussed. This is what that addresses. I want to make sure that you avoid entering details that can be used to identify the client. What I will say is sometimes, let's say if you, I know attorneys have uploaded medical records that when they do that, and if it's something that they're not sure whether it has the correct privacy or security, that they redact names, they redact identifying information, they redact a lot of that. And I think that's a way of getting around that and making sure that you're not disclosing anything necessarily from your client. The client is still, questionable whether you should or shouldn't do that. The reality of doing that, though, at the end of the day, is that that still takes a lot of time, right? If you're working with a set of, something that's quite common, right? It could be 1,000 pages of medical records. What, you're going to go through all of that and redact every single page, every single client identifying piece of information? That takes more time, right? And so that's why it's more helpful to use legal grade and medical grade specific platforms. We also have a duty of competence and diligence, making sure that the AI outputs don't include false and inaccurate information. We have the responsibility of making sure that we use the technology competently, and that it's not inconsistent with the active practice of law. So we've all heard those stories of attorneys submitting law in motion information with cases that have been entirely hallucinated by AI. That's why it's important for us to review that. And I will also say that a lot of my approach with tech and AI, throughout as a through line, is that I look at AI as the best first year associate that I could hire, right? The first year associate is great. I send them out on tasks. They'll give them to me, but I'm still going to review it, right? I'm not just going to blindly turn something in that a first year associate gives to me. And neither of us would. And that's exactly what AI is, right? It's a great assistance in our practice. It helps us, 50, 60% get 50, 60% of the way there, sometimes more, but it's still information that we have to review. It's still information that it's our responsibility to make sure that what we're turning in is true and accurate. Next is regarding communication regarding generative AI. If it's going to be used, it's a good idea to put it in your retainer agreements and your attorney-client retention agreements, to have that in there and just let them know, right? It's not a big deal. I think now folks anticipate and expect that to happen, but it's important to have that communicated to your client. And also, there's this rule about charging for work produced by Gen AI. So the costs associated with generative AI can be charged to clients in compliance with applicable law. So make sure that the fee agreement spells out the costs and fees associated with that, and then you're in the clear. And again, another rule about reviewing generative AI outputs before you submit it to the court. Okay, so moving right along now, the second phase. So that was the first phase, making sure that we have the right permits. We're addressing compliance, security concerns, and now we're moving on to the second phase. This is the foundation and the framing, right, of the house. And when it comes to law, this is really about law practice management tech tools, case management software or CMS, or sometimes known as CMPs, case management platforms, or CRMs, client relationship management programs or software. And I won't, for our purposes, necessarily go down a detailed look into each one and all the different options that are available. I'll just discuss one briefly. It's the one that I use. It's not necessarily I'm saying that everybody has to use it or it's the best thing. It works for our practice. I very much like it, but it's more an example of something that's available. Not everybody uses the case management platform, case management software, and it definitely is something that I think is a value add to everybody's practice. So what is a CMS? It's a cloud-based platform to help firms better organize their cases. It provides various tools, document storage, task tracking, and allows everyone to have access to essential client information and streamline communication within the team. I remember when I first started practicing law, I started practicing in 2015, and if you wanted to do work outside of the office, you needed to have a VPN, you needed to be given a specific computer, and only certain attorneys, right, as first year, I didn't have access to that, so I needed to be in the office. And so you're in the office 24/7, basically, right, because you didn't have access to any information or documents outside of the office. Nowadays, it's all cloud-based, right? And so I can be on vacation working on my cases. It doesn't matter where I'm at. I have everything available to me on this system. It acts as an all-in-one solution as well for streamlining communication with our team, with our clients. Moving along, just sort of examples of what it can do. It can manage client data, deadlines, tasks, document storage, records, communications, workflow automation. And that's a big one. I'll discuss that in a moment. And provide reporting and analytics as well, which is super helpful when you're looking at the business of law as opposed to just the practice of it. Um, and important for everyone to know here and to sort of take with respect to their approach to tech and AI is that AI isn't a substitute for case management. It's just an enhancement that sits on top of it. And again, with all tech and AI, it's not supposed to substitute people necessarily. It's supposed to assist and enhance our practice. It can help make us better, but not it. It shouldn't be used to do necessarily the work for us or think in place of us, right? Um, all right, so some examples of case management systems are something like Filevine, Clio, Smart Advocate, Litify, My Case. Some of you might use one, have experience with another, may have experience with several of them, have your favorites. There are others, but this is not an exhaustive list. But if you're interested in looking at a case management system, here are some uh, options that I would encourage you to take a look at and see which one best fits your practice. And so, as I mentioned, I use Filevine. Filevine does a lot of great stuff from the very beginning. When I started using it, I immediately saw um, the benefits of having a case management system. Being able to assign stuff like tasks, for example. I think that was the very first thing that I started using when we got Filevine. It goes beyond document storage, right? Because you can have Dropbox, which is what I had when I first opened up my practice as a solo practitioner. You have Dropbox and you have everything stored there. Hey, it's cloud-based. I could access it anywhere. But that's just document storage, and there's really nothing beyond that. Filevine goes way beyond that. So it's not just document storage. It's not just a repository for your records and your files, but it's also a way to assign tasks. I said that was one of the first things that I started using, right? Being able to assign tasks to my team members specifically to do certain things, and it's tracked, and I can keep track of the tasks that I assign. Instead of, for example, when in the firm where I worked with, and I, worked at for many years, I created my own Excel sheet where I had my tasks and sort of was tracking all of that, marking it off, like, did I do this? Did I do that? Now it's all just available within this case management system. And also, I remember my boss, my previous firm, I would, once he saw that I did that, would ask for that Excel sheet so he could also see like, hey, what is Kenny working on, right? What else can I assign him? And moving ahead with Filevine now, even myself as the person who's assigning tasks, I can keep track of all of that and see all the tasks that I've assigned, whether they've been completed or not. But you can also calendar and deadlines and automating task flows is huge. Being able to create a task flow, for example, with something, I'll just give a very simple example. I'm a trial attorney and when we have cases, litigation, we try cases, but we also have pre-litigation department. And with pre-litigation, sometimes it's a little bit more cookie cutter in terms of things that need to be done at the, let's say, beginning of a case, right? And so now these things are automated and the tasks are assigned immediately. It takes a lot of the thinking out of certain tasks that should be automated, right? Like assigning who should send the client, the initial client letter, the email, the letters of representation to insurance adjusters. It doesn't do that, but assigns a task immediately. And the documents could also be automated by the staff to create those records, those correspondences, and send those out. So it works in a way that helps simplify everything. And you're not necessarily thinking about what is next in line because that's already been predetermined about what's next in line. So workflows, task flows, unlimited cloud storage, which is huge. There's an AI suite. I'll mention that. I'll talk about that. And several integrations with a lot of your attorney services and vendors. So that you don't have to leave the platform to do things like order medical records. You can stay on that same page and do it. You don't have to go anywhere else. It all gets done from without leaving that page. I have examples here. I don't necessarily, I'll skip through some of these. I already talked about tasks, calendaring. I love their calendaring. It's two ways, so it gets shared with your Outlook calendar, for example, because I use Outlook calendar. But I can see everything that is calendared in individual cases. So every single case has their own individual calendar, and you can see everything that's coming up in each individual case. But then separate from that, there's a master calendar that includes everything. And then it's two-way synced with your Outlook so that anything that you've personally put into your calendar also gets included. And so it's great because you have this very comprehensive calendar where it's very difficult to miss anything. Deadline chains are automatically generated. These are great, again, before if we have a trial date, for example, we have to set all the important pre-trial dates or the trial schedule and law in motion schedule. A lot of times that was manually done, or we'd create Excel sheets and try to, get the correct dates, but then you have to calendar that separately. You have to get on calendar, make sure you calendar that. That's gone now. We have, for example, a trial deadline chain. All I have to do is put the trial date, and it immediately will generate all the dates that are important leading up to trial, and not just give me those dates, but put them on my calendar immediately. If any changes need to be made because a judge gives this specific order, they change the FSC, TS, whatever it is, we can just manually go in there and change that specific date. So again, very helpful, particularly, let's say when I started as a solo and then as a small firm, because, that's something that can be done immediately. It doesn't even need to necessarily be assigned out. Um, Doc generation, I think a lot of people are accustomed to something like this, but you can create correspondences, pleadings, and motions with a click of a button now. We had macros before on like Microsoft Word, but this is, I think, a lot more detailed and flexible. Limited cloud storage. AI suite, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Timekeeping, billing, and expense tracking as well for folks that do billing. That's available. And custom reports. I love these reports. We have reports that are generated weekly about any deadlines that are coming up. It could be financial report as well, list of tasks, payments, whatever it is. There's different reports that are generated and goes to their particular department. Very helpful again, because it's just something that's done with a click of a button. And what I love as well is that they're all hyperlinked reports, right? So I get a list of, let's say, upcoming deadlines. And it's not just the name of the case, but it's hyperlinked. So I can click onto it and it'll take me directly to, what is it telling me that's due? When is it due? Are there any additional information, hearings, et cetera, that have been attached to it? So it's very comprehensive and detailed. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of integrations. You can use different types of programs, vendors, and they're integrated into, in this case, FileVine, but it could be any other case management system. It's very holistic, and it goes beyond, again, just document storage. And they also, in Filevine's case, and in any other case management system, they're all growing. I mean, the cool thing about this particular sort of time that we're in is that all of these companies are also competing with each other, right? They're trying to be better than the CMS that's next to them, right? So they're growing, they're innovating at all times. And, Filevine, for example, they have these three newer products and additions into their system. Depot Copilot, for example, is something that just wild. It sort of, tacks onto, let's say, like a Zoom meeting. When most folks are, many depositions are being done through Zoom now. It could also be done live, but if it's through Zoom, and it'll make suggestions about questions that should be asked, because what you do initially, even before the depot, you set out sort of, this is what I want to do. These are the certain things that I want to get from the witness, and it'll keep track of all those things and make suggestions. So it acts sort of like as a second chair during your depot. Again, they're not doing the work for you, but something like that can augment your practice, right? Because you're taking a depot just like you've always done. You prepare for it just like you always have. But now you have this sort of second chair that is adding some additional information that you might not have considered or had time to consider as you're going live. Client portal is a way to communicate directly with your client, let them know when, like, it's the next phase in litigation, they get communication. You can automate that stuff. It's really great. And a lot of rather companies have individual sort of client portals that they provide as integrations, but something like Filevine, they're putting that natively into their system, so you don't have to go anywhere or even integrate. Lois is also something that's really cool. I have another an article that's coming out on the Cala magazine in a couple of months on this particular new tool within Filevine. I encourage you to just check it out. But it really represents sort of the second phase of AI, where it's not just a tool, but it's trying to create an operating system. So it's an AI agent essentially that is overseeing, that is implemented into Filevine, and it operates within each individual case. So, for example, I have a case in random. I'm just gonna make something up, right? Herrera v. Johnson, and I can use Lois to ask any questions about the case, and it'll pull from all the information within that case. So I can ask about the liability picture. I had that recently in a case where we got pulled in for trial. There are a lot of depositions that had already been taken. The liability question was not quite clear, and I uploaded and put everything into my case file. Again, I didn't upload it into any other system or LLM or AI, no, into my case management system where my entire case file is housed. And asked it, hey, like, give me a summary of the liability picture. What are the strengths, weaknesses? What are the best case scenario, worst case scenario? What still needs to be done? Just as a way to get some baseline information on this case, right? And it looked through absolutely everything, through notes, through memos, through transcripts, through law in motion, everything that was there, and it provided a really good summary as a sort of jumping off point to where the liability issue was. I've also used it a lot, for example, on calls with clients. The client will call and want to get a status update, and you can very quickly ask it, and it'll provide you the answer, let's say, of the status of the case. But as with everything, everything is linked as well, hyperlinked. So it's not just making things up. I can verify that what they're saying is true, right? And so it'll link to a note that myself or a team member may have put into that case file, to an email, to a document, to correspond, whatever it is. So it's something that's really cool, and it's also then in many instances suggesting next steps. It recognizes what phase a case is in and suggests next step, whether it's ready for demand, for example, whether there's something that still needs to be obtained in the liability picture. It's not doing the work for you, but it's making suggestions that go beyond just, hey, I'm going to upload information. Because with a lot of, let's say, public models, we have our, whether you're using Dropbox or something like a case management system, you have all of your file in one place. And if you're going to use an LLM, you're going to download certain documents and upload them into that LLM. The issue with that is that it's still operating off a very basic or limited set of information because you're still missing a lot of documents, information, context that's contained within your case file. Something like Lois now um, doesn't run into that issue. It's pulling from your entire case context and file. So that's really great. I would encourage folks, and again, this is I'm talking about FileVine because it's something I use, but I'm not saying necessarily you have to stick with FileVine. It could be your case management system already, or there's another one that you like better. And I imagine, and many of these rather, are implementing and attempting to implement very similar tools. All right, I'm gonna keep going because I've noticed that we've got like 20 minutes and there's a lot. So I'm going to go quickly now through this last phase, which is the finish. This is the fancy stuff that everybody likes, right? It's like I said, it's the tile, it's the painting, it's the light fixtures, it's the chandelier, it's the base molding, the crown molding of a house that everybody actually sees. And in the legal sphere, it's the tools that we hear that are doing all these cool and great things. So that's what I want to talk about right now. Generative AI assistants, document review chronologies, demand letters, tools that can be used in the different phases of litigation. So we talked a bit already about LLMs, and again, this same sort of slide. What are LLMs? Is just an AI system that's been trained to understand patterns in human language and be able to generate human language. Um, I'm going to give you some strengths and weaknesses, or really strengths of ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. Um, each one of them, they're also competing with each other, but each one of them has a different strength compared to the other. With ChatGPT, they're very versatile with a creative writing style. I think they are probably, yeah, and they definitely are the one that's used the most by folks. Many people, this was sort of their first introduction to what we now know as AI. Um, but ChatGPT continues to be very versatile and consistent for general legal writing tasks. So correspondences, emails, small memos. It's very good with that, non-case specific correspondence. And if you're going to just have or pay for one, this might be one that hey, you feel comfortable with because it's very versatile in general. Um, Claude, they have a large context window and strong legal, and it's a very excellent legal writer. What I mean by large context window is that it can handle a lot and long documents. We're not going to get into the discussion of like tokens and get a little bit more specific, but essentially, there is, for example, with ChatGPT, which has less of a context window, there there's a limit to how long the document that you're uploading can be, right? Because it's not going to be able to read all of that or handle all of it. Whereas Claude can handle these long documents. And it's also a very strong legal writer compared to ChatGPT and Gemini. So if you're looking for something to help you with legal writing itself, this might be something that you maybe gravitate more towards. And Gemini, versatile again. Oops, no, that's the wrong title in there. But it has a deep integration with Google services and it's great for understanding audio and video content. So ignore that title about versatile with creative writing style. But the good thing about Gemini is that it's something that if you're using Google, for example, or you have that how your Gmail, your Google Business, that might be something that you're very interested in using because it integrates really well with all of that. And it works really well with audio and video content. If you've tried to use audio and video content with like ChatGPT, for example, you're going to run into some issues. You try to upload an audio file, for example, it might not be able to transcribe or understand it. Whereas something like Gemini will work very well with that. So depending on what you're using it for, depending on your need, whether it could be ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, you have an option there. You have options. So with ChatGPT, this is more for you to have just in your material. These are prompt suggestions. I definitely encourage folks when you're writing in prompts to tell the LLM, tell the AI who and what they are, right? Hey, act as my opposing counsel, or you are an attorney for X, right? And let it take on that role in order to provide a better response for you. Provide as much context as possible, because the more context provided, the better their outputs are going to be. You can always iterate and follow up with questions, ask for sources as well, so that you can sort of prevent it from hallucination. But you're always going to have to double check because, again, the issue with an open universe tool is that it is going to pull from the known universe. All right. This was a previous slide. Let's keep it moving for now. With CoCounsel, talked about it a little about it before, but it's a generative AI system for lawyers. Um, I started using it, CoCounsel, before it was acquired by Westlaw, Thomson Reuters, and I liked it before, and it's getting better now. So I'm a fan of it. And what I will say is that it's been trained for the law. Again, it's private, it's secure, it's in a closed environment. And I think that for me, from the very beginning, when I started using, was something that was really important. That it was selected by OpenAI to be tailored for the legal world was also something that was important for me then, and it continues to be now. Um, One note here is that CoCounsel also says that it is a multi-model um, system, which basically means that initially it only used ChatGPT for everything. Now, as a multi-model, it uses the functionality of Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT, and sort of uses it for different tasks and employs the different ones for different tasks depending on what it's best for. So that's something that's helpful to know, because you're not just limited to one particular type of output or system. All right. What can it do? Review documents, helps prepare for depositions. I've used that tool because it's like, hey, if I have it, why not, right? Like, I'm gonna prep for my deposition as I typically do, but also, hey, what are some recommendations that you have? What are some things that I might be missing? And I've definitely used some of the questions or areas that CoCounsel has prompted to me in the past. Again, it's not a substitute, because you still have to know your case file, right? And this is just something that augments your practice, not a substitute for it. Can create timelines, search databases, summarize documents, draft correspondence. Oops, it does all of that. I have prompt suggestions here as well, similar to what I discussed with ChatGPT. Assign a role, provide context, do all of that. But again, here we have a less of an issue of it pulling any random information because it's a closed environment. Because of time, I'm going to go quickly here, but these are just slides showing you what that sort of looks like uh, on the dashboard when you use CoCounsel. Keep going. I mentioned that co-counsel is getting better, and it is. I think in my practice, in the way that I employed co-counsel, I've always liked it. I think there were some folks that thought that it could be better, and sometimes it was using some of the older models, and that it wasn't sort of as cutting edge as the others. This new co-counsel legal that Thomson Reuters is doing is new, and it's an upgraded version. I've had demos of it, and it's, again, a multi-model structure, architecture, and it has something called agentic AI workflows that many of the other companies like Eve, Everlaw, Anytime AI, Harvey, have popularized. And so what is agentic AI workflows? It's essentially you being able to create a workflow that fits your practice or specific tasks. So something as simple as creating a demand letter. I know that's really popular to discuss, but something like creating a demand letter, you can create a workflow and save that workflow so that you're not prompting things every single time you want a demand letter or a section to be created, but rather you can create that workflow and just initiate it and get that going, which is, again, very helpful, very something that can be modified for depending on your practice, depending on your firm, and even some of the folks that have had sort of criticized or maybe thought that CoCounsel could be better in the past. I've also tried some of this newest stuff and kind of gone down. It is getting better. This is pretty good now. I like it a lot. So again, I'm not getting paid by them, but it is something that you might want to check out. Lexis AI is also very similar in that sphere. I don't use Lexis AI, so that's why I talk about CoCounsel. I talk about the stuff that I use, but I also mention the alternatives or other options because they exist and they might work better for you. If you already have, for me, I use CoCounsel. I stayed with CoCounsel once Thomson Reuters bought it because it made sense, right? I already have Westlaw. I don't use Lexis. I have Westlaw, and it just made sense to continue to go with them. In addition to the fact that I like them, Lexis, you might have Lexis AI, it might make sense to just go with Lexis. Rather, you might have Lexis, and it might just make sense to continue with Lexis AI. Um, I also have an example of one of those do-it-all options that I mentioned. Eve is something that I've also looked at. I thought it was great. I have other colleagues who use it, who are getting it. It's a do-it-all option that what they try to do is kind of hit every single area of a particular practice, whether it's intake and evaluation, medical overviews, demand letters, drafting, propounding discovery, responding to discovery. They want to be sort of your go-to place for AI tools and anything that you might need. Um, so, for example, with case intake and evaluation, identifying cases with highest potential, summarizing key facts, quantifying damages. Well, keep going. Medical overviews and can create comprehensive medical chronologies rather than necessarily having to, you know, pay someone to do that on a case per case basis. Now you have this built into the system that you have. Demand letters, drafting legal documents, unlimited iterations, propounding discovery, and creating workflows as well. You might have a template for the types of interrogatories that you might want, or requests for production, or requests for admissions for a slip and fall case, for a crash case, for a TBI, for whatever it might be, and you can create those workflows and save those and use those. Now, a lot of us already have templates. You might have that saved like on your desktop or somewhere and just like use those. But then these can be created in a manner that also eliminates additional sort of inputting when it comes to templates, right? It's something that can just be created and you eliminate time. And that's where I think AI does some of its best work, right? It eliminates some of the time that is spent on uh, that can be better spent on strategy and thinking about your case and moving your case along rather than some of the more mundane tasks, whether it's you or whether it's your staff as well. There might be more important things for them to do than just be working on, updating a template or turning a template, making a case specific. Um, and again, this Venn diagram, just as a reminder, between the sort of general purpose public LLMs, the legal specific closed universe, and some of your do-it-all options. If you just want to go ahead and check them out and take some of those demos, I encourage you to do that. That's, I think, where so much is learned, and you decide what you use and what you want to use for your practice. Transcript Genius, Steno is a company. Steno is a court reporting company, and they have Transcript Genius and have had it for a while, so it's not really introducing anymore. But what Transcript Genius does is basically, if you use Steno once, right, as your court reporting agency, you have immediate access to this platform that they have, where you can upload your transcripts, and it doesn't have to be transcripts that were obtained from with and through them. you can upload any other transcripts in any other cases. And you can chat with your transcripts, have an interactive conversation, ask for facts, summaries, legal insights, analyze and synthesize information across multiple transcripts as well. Ask to find any contradictions, inconsistencies, where those occur, and it'll locate those. Customized transcript summaries are also really great. Refining responses, asking for follow-up questions, and just finding transcripts faster. And so I think this is such a great platform. If you have not, if you're still sort of wondering whether AI is something that you should dip your toes into, I would urge you try sending them out first because again, just use them on a depot and you have access to them and to this platform, and then just try it out. Right? I think this is something that's very helpful, particularly that being able to interrogate across multiple transcripts is very helpful when you're trying to find information. One of the other things about this as I sort of just go through this is that it can also search. It does hyperlink citations, of course, the biggest thing for me at all times, but it can also search based on concepts. So, if someone talked about being sad, but you forgot where it was, right? And they actually might not have said the word sad. Maybe they said depressed, and you say, hey, like, you could input when did this person talk about being sad. It won't just look for this word sad, it'll look for those concepts, right? So it'll locate the area where depression was discussed. And so that's helpful as well because it's not just searching for a word, it's searching on concepts and ideas, and it will locate those for you. Um, Demand letters, I won't go through these necessarily because they're very, I think, can be plaintiff specific. But there are many tools that allow for demand letters to be created. I use those tools as well, but what I will say is that those are always used sort of as like a baseline. We at no point are those ever taken, generated, and sent immediately over to as a demand. Because again, these are just tools that help you not substitute the work for you. So Even Up is a company that does that as well. The one thing I will mention about Even Up, okay, right here is that what I really like from them is their Medcrons. I think they do medical chronologies different from other ones that I've seen. There was a case where we came in on, it was a TBI case. Okay, we got brought in for trial, and this large file. It was over the course of almost like 4 years before it had come to me. So there was a large medical file. And just for me to get a basic understanding of where things were, I used their medical chronology tool. And I love that it is very visual. Here's some examples, right? It's very color coded. There's timelines, and it very much helps prepare for trial immediately. So I saw and see the benefit of that. And it's all, again, citations. You can click and it'll take you to the exact place that it's pulling the information from. It's just a wonderful way to visually to see and interact with medical chronologies. Parrot is also a tool that, let's see, we have it here, where you can get medical chronologies. Just as another option. I won't necessarily go through it right now. See, I have just a minute left, so I'm just trying to go quickly here. Document organization and retrieval. Chart Squad is used to get medical records. They're a very great company. I use them all the time. And one thing, really cool thing about them is that there's no contracts. It's a flat fee. It's per order. So many companies nowadays are everybody wants an annual contract. Everybody wants credits that you need to purchase and buy. And one thing I like about Chart Squad is that they don't do that, and you can just take it and use them as you need them. They also have a lot of AI tools now that they're implementing as services for their attorneys, firms that are using them, and so that's available there. And they also just acquired Parrot that I just discussed for medical chronologies. Um, Foundation AI, if you have this is just a way of organizing, collecting information. So like any emails that get sent to you, they immediately file it into your system. Anything that's scanned, they file it into your system rather than having an individual do it. I've heard about this helping firms, take their team, like scanning team, or sort of staff down from 20 down to 5 or whatever. But this is again an option that's available. Um, I will go through these briefly. I'll go over just a little bit here, but with case intake client communication tools, I really like the Smith AI we use for as like sort of a virtual receptionist, not AI speaking to people, but it employs actual it does virtual reception service, but we use the actual people, so they also do that as well. And they use AI chatbots features to log and route calls efficiently. For us, it's been great because we use them a lot during like off hours, right? And they are able to take all the calls, able to pass that information on to us. And let's say Speed AI, we use Speed AI with our intake system. It doesn't replace your CRM or your intake system. It's sort of like an add-on on top of that, and it works with your AI system. Really liked it because it was a way to sort of power up your intake platform. It analyzes all the calls that have come in and analyzes them for any missed opportunities and scores case quality. So the people doing intake, it'll provide a score for them as well, and provide coaching opportunities. Like, hey, like maybe you weren't necessarily empathetic when the potential client was discussing this. And it's just a great way for people to receive immediate feedback because sometimes that feedback might be lacking. But it's a great way to sort of provide a safeguard for making sure that you don't miss opportunities in the future and for also helping and training your team. Um, Whippy, I really like Whippy. We use that. Um, what Whippy, the way that we've used it, they have a lot. They have AI web chat, they have a mobile app, sequences, integrations. The way that I use it most is that it allowed me to turn my office phone number and what I'll pull back a little bit here. What something like Filevine allows you to have is a specific case, sort of text number for every single case. So every single one of my clients had a specific text number they could always text. And that was great because all they had to do was text that number, it would be uploaded directly into their case file. Again, another great thing of case management systems. The one thing though is that what I started realizing is that when we send that welcome letter to our client, they initially called my office number. I provide my clients with my cell phone as well. Um, I then also gave them this case specific text number and my in our email. That was just a lot of numbers for folks to like, where are they actually sending the information to? If they need to call me, if they need to send a text, like where should they send it to? And so what Whippy allowed us to do is to take our main office line, our number, and and to turn that so that people can text that number. Every single one of our clients, every single potential client could text that number for the entirety of from when they called us for an intake to when the case resolves. And the way that it looks like in on our end is that it's just a platform. It's also on my phone. It's an app. And let's say once the first time a client communicates with our office, it'll be the intake team talking to them. When we sign the case up, that client's number gets assigned to a specific attorney in the office. And now they're the ones that are speaking with the client, but always through that same number. As far as the client knows, they don't know any better. They're always speaking and texting with that office number. But internally, it's assigned to the client, to the attorney that's handling the case. It just helped with, attorney client communication, helped facilitate and make conversation a lot easier and smoother. And also, from one of the other things that we do is that any text conversation that we have with clients gets forwarded immediately to the case file at the end of the day. And so, again, any information, no matter where it's communication it's had with client, gets sent into the case file at the end of the day. There's another slide there on that. I won't discuss this discovery tools, but there are discovery tools available like Esquire Tech and BriefPoint. It's in the materials. The very last thing I'll say is just with content creation, there's also these tools that are available for you. I think creating content is not necessarily something that people should shy away from. I think it's something that us as attorneys can lean into. I'm a very private person. I never posted things on my social media prior to opening up my own practice. But when you open up your own practice, you go, hey, like I need to, sign cases up. So I need to be a little bit more visible. But you could do it in a way that where you're comfortable and that you feel comfortable and you don't feel that, you're being gimmicky. You don't feel that you're doing something out of your comfort zone or where you're not being genuine. You could do it in your own way, but most of the time, we're busy as attorneys. We don't have time to do any of this editing or do this additional stuff. Here are some tools that can help you quickly take any video or photos that you've taken and turn that into something that you can post online, right? Something like CapCut, for example, is a great tool. It's an app that you can have on your phone. It'll take videos and photos that you have and make something really cool and like you just post it. And now you're visible for clients, for referring attorneys. That's something that that is important to you. And so those are just tools using AI as well that can help you. Um, just closing thoughts, take time to test products. As I was saying, take the demos, take the meetings, and embrace the ever-evolving nature of technology, right? Be exposed to it, learn, test it, and just to discover and rediscover. That is my time for today. Thank you all so much for having me. And if you guys have any questions, that's my contact information. Feel free to email me, reach out to me as well. Those are social media as well. We also have a podcast. It's called Art of Purpose. It's not even like legal. It's just where we talk about how individuals discover purpose. Obviously, because of our industry, we have a lot of attorneys and judges as well in a lot of folks that you might know. So, check us out and thank you for your time. It was a pleasure.